Oh, Tatenda, I just saw you. Hey,
Just give me a moment to get a room.
no problem. Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. How are you doing, Jay?
Good, good. Just deleting this thing 1 second. Yeah, doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'd been a bit busy like in the past, I think maybe 2 weeks, with like customer issues and work stuff, but things are a bit lighter now. So I had some time to jump on operating and stuff.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm onboarding Geetika onto some stuff and um really we're just working through a Calico issue on one of the clusters we're testing on right now. And that's kind of the only update I had. Pramita also got bogged down in customer issues, but she's going to be coming back online in a few days here. Um, but I feel like y'all are making great progress. So, I feel like we probably should just see how far we get within a month or two and then sort of do some formalization, cut a release and say, here's the first operational readiness spec. Here you go. Right. And so that we can sort of put a pin in it and then sort of do the next iteration afterwards. Because otherwise I think we'll just keep finding issues and
I agree.
we'll never, be able to sort of mark any territory in terms of where we're at and what we're doing next. Yeah.
I agree. So I can try and help push the pedal in the next 2 months. We've been making good progress, like you said, but it's been slow and steady. So maybe this will give us a push.
Yeah. Like it's just, I feel like there's a lot there and maybe gift wrapping it is maybe we owe ourselves just like, let's just gift wrap this thing and say, here we go, you know? So
Yeah.
this is awesome. I appreciate you guys sticking with it for so long. Nobody sticks with anything anymore in Kubernetes. So the fact that you guys are still here, I really appreciate.
Awesome. I have a couple of questions regarding the work I was doing, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So the first is I ran into the same issue regarding the node selectors that are non-existent in some cases.
Hmm.
So maybe let me just like go back a little bit just to give the full context. So I was going through the Kubernetes upstream test, trying to identify like appropriate scheduling tests. I checked the Linux conformance tests and found the ones that I thought were appropriate for Windows. Some
Hmm.
I left out because I feel like they're more cluster conformance tests, more like for the scheduler to do. But some I feel
Yeah.
like were Kubernetes specific. That's why I picked the ones that I did. So I saw that you did say you merged them, but I also want to just get your thumbs up that maybe those specific tests that I picked are relevant for scheduling.
Yeah. Let's look. Okay. Let me see.
You also navigate to find it.
Okay. I'm in here. Where were they? They were in specifications, right? Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Core scheduling. Okay. I'm looking now.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking at the spec. Okay. So what have you got in here? You've got core scheduling. So you've got not exceed pod memory limits, ability to not exceed CPU limits, and then the ones we skipped are preemption, limit range. What is a limit range?
I also discovered it recently. It's when you specify Kubernetes limit, but you can specify a min and a maximum.
Oh,
I've never
that's the
used it.
thing where you say like somebody can make one of these, but it can't. Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It prevents other people from making. Oh, no, no. Limit ranges are part of the general thing of like, they're not a constraint on how you make pods. They're actually in the pod spec itself, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So the C can use up to this much CPU. That's what they call it. Yeah, yeah. I just forgot that was called. I
Same.
forgot it was called
Like
that.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
For myself, I actually like saw it like
Why did you,
almost for the yeah.
but why did you comment it out? Is it bad, do you think?
No, so the three that are commented out are not working for Windows on EKS specifically, but it has to do with that node selector, right? So even for other clusters, they'll be affected in that it may schedule on a Linux node or a Windows node. So we need the node selector.
You guys don't like that node selector though.
Like EKS, right?
But I thought EKS solves this for us if you have it deployed the right way with the webhook thing.
Yes, it does. But that was going to be my next question actually, Jay, regarding how do we keep treating these issues because they keep cropping up. And
Well,
we
you know,
either are gonna have to
we could force people to make a runtime class.
what if we
Because a
like
runtime
uh, uh,
class is the
uh,
idiomatic way to solve this, right?
but how would you specify the runtime class to be used by the pods? Don't we need to edit the pod spec to use the runtime class? It's in the tests. Is there a workaround you might know that I don't know of?
Yeah. Either way, it's the same problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you make a runtime class, and even then when you make the runtime class, you need to know the container D runtime. So it's even more unspecific. I
Ah,
think we
yeah.
need to add, I think for every test we want to run, if we want it to actually be something that's fair to all providers, I think we need to add something like a node selector.
Okay.
Because
So
I
I
think
can go ahead
unless you
and
do that, every cluster is going to work differently.
We can't do that. Like that was at least we shouldn't do that.
Okay. Why?
Possibly, at least not by default. And that's because of I'm trying to think. But this happened a while ago. Like we assume that hang on, give me a second. We assume that like I don't remember exactly like why it happens, but um if tests need to like I think that was reserved for some of the hybrid tests that need to test Linux and Windows. Otherwise, it's assumed that the all of the nodes that are kind of ready and able to have pod scheduled in the cluster are can work with either test without a node selector running. And I think we probably need to get some information from Claudio about why that was, but this has come up again in a couple times, and there's reasons that I don't quite or that I can't remember right now why we can't do that, Jay.
Okay.
Like I think we can like what we've done in the past is we've had individual like setups install things like mutating webhooks that can add those things to nodes or add those things to pods that are coming in, and that doesn't interfere with most of the EDE tests. But
Yeah,
there
that
are
was
some
what
reasons why we need to
Tatenda
assume
was.
it's kind of vanilla.
Yeah, that's what the EKS people were suggesting.
We do that with some of the Windows tests today. We did that for Hyper-V isolated containers and things like that. So we added a runtime class, but the individual test, like the cluster setup, knows what runtime classes to use and sets up runtime class handler that gets applied
So
to.
what if we did this then? What if we said to run operational readiness, you have to have a runtime class? And how you make that runtime class is up to you. But you have to have a runtime class for Windows set up. But how does the runtime class affect the webhook though?
The webhook will like we have the code in the Windows testing repository. The webhook checks the incoming pods, and if certain criteria is met, it'll add the runtime class handler.
It does the same thing that the runtime class does. Yeah. Yeah.
Mark, I have a question for you. Do we in the Kubernetes registry images, is there a webhook that can do this for us that we can use that I need to check. I'm not sure.
So I don't know if there's a webhook, but I know that some of the enhancements that have been going through either SIG, I think SIG apps have been making it so that you can add more like
dynamic logic.
conditions.
Yeah.
That's the CEL.
Yeah, they have like a dynamic language now in the API server, right?
Yeah, they can do more things. I don't know how full bodied or like how that is.
You can reach out to them and find out.
But I'm still getting confused about what you need a webhook for if you have a runtime class.
No, the webhook applies the runtime class if the pod doesn't have it. So the EDE
That's all
test,
we need it for. Yeah, okay.
yeah, the EDE test just says schedule the pod and with whatever setup is needed to run the test on either Windows or Linux. And then if there's special criteria that needs to happen, like extra annotations or labels.
And you're saying runtime class is still cheating. It's just same type of cheating as if you do the node. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So we can't hard code it to have runtime classes either. We can implement a runtime class. Whatever we implement has to be done through some mechanism that is completely naive to the E2E test. God, I hate that. I hate the fact that that's a rule, but okay. I mean, I think this is fine. I think if this is what we have to do, this is what we have to do. Everybody's got to, we just need to have a really good guide for if you're running this on EKS, here's how to run it. If you're running it on vSphere, here's how you run it. Everybody who wants people to be able to pass the test, you have to have EKS set up correctly with webhooks. That's what we ask in production.
Yeah, I think that we can, provide either sample webhooks or potentially like a configurable webhook that as a reference. But I think the ED tests, we should keep them vanilla unless we talk to Claudio and have whatever, have all that reconciled. Because I do remember there were some reasons for that.
I mean, I guess we should just accept it's probably not worth the time to try to change it because it's not the thing that's gonna make a difference for us, right? If we have to do this, we should just we should just accept it because it's not a huge deal to not it's not a huge deal either way. I think it's fine. So let's just say every people who run it, yeah, we can make it better with the default webhook that's customizable and give docs and stuff. But for now, what we can do with the amount of hands that we have is we can say that every single vendor that wants the operational readiness stuff to work well should provide a couple of bullet points in our README about how to run them, right? And maybe it's doing this, maybe it's doing that, right?
Yeah, I agree with that, and I can work on that, making it easy for a section that's cloud specific with those kind of instructions. And I'll also look into the I think I should reach out to Claudio as well just to get those reasons so we just know them and maybe add them to the KIP or something. And I'll also
that would be great if you could get that and formalize it and put it in the cap. That would be awesome.
And then I'll look into I like the idea that Mark says of a configurable webhook. I'll look into how that would be possible. I think Mark, you said SIG apps guys are the ones that have it, so I'll try and reach out to them to hear what they have.
Yeah, I know that some of the KEP was CEL came up a lot, and that's the common expression language, and that was I don't remember the specifics, but if you search in the enhancements repository, either under SIG apps or potentially for either CEL or expression language, you might see some of the enhancements that have been going in recently. I think that there was a bunch of different enhancements, and if I remember correctly, most of them are at least in beta. But yeah, the SIG apps guys I think will be able to help a lot more. And I'll link to the webhook that we have for the Hyper-V mutating, or
Yes,
that
please.
the mutating webhook that adds the Hyper-V runtime class. We do set that up only for the test pass that we want to run Hyper-V isolated containers on. That one's not very generic, but you can kind of get a sense of what that looks like.
Yeah, that will help.
Let me tab. I don't know if you've ever built a webhook or used QBuilder before, but most of the code in that folder is like is generated or templated code that's generated by QBuilder. I believe that in the README somewhere there's points to the documentation for how to use the QBuilder project to configure to do the scaffolding for a webhook.
I've not used it before, but I'm going to look it up so I get an idea of how it works and how we might use it. Thanks for that.
Yeah. If not, I'll try and find it. I think that James initially set this up, and I've done it as well for a different project.
Perfect. I saw the one that you sent me.
Yeah, I think let's try and get some confirmation from Claudio about this, and then trying to just have like a admission webhook that adds a runtime class or whatever's needed if there's any kind of specific environmental constraints. Like EKS has probably the most generic way to go, and then we can just document that, or we can check that too. Like
Yeah.
Perfect.
I think this is
so
good. Yeah, I think this sounds good.
Probably a little bit more complicated than just updating all the ED tests, but what isn't?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't like it, but look, if we don't have a choice, if we can't act the test, we can't act the test.
Yeah.
I was just telling Tatenda, I figure we might as well take what we've got so far, put a bow on it, and say, here's V0.1.
Yeah.
You know, this is something. It verifies something. It doesn't verify everything, but hey, Mark, while you're here, I got a question. Do you know what makes the kubelet determine whether the network is ready or not in the E2E tests?
The
I
same
hate
thing
to
that
like
happens in
put,
the
I
same
hate
thing
to
that
put
happens
a
in a regular cluster.
put the
The
gun to your head in the back alley in the middle of the night here, but
well, I'm
yeah.
just saying, like the same thing that happens in a regular cluster. I think the EDE test just as part of the framework before it starts running the tests, it makes sure that all of the nodes are ready. And so it's up to like normally it's the CNI registration and everything
but it's like, does the kubelet like it used to check like var log, var user bin CNI or something? It used to check a directory. Does it still do that, or does it do something? Right?
I don't like what I've seen is like CNI, at least Calico will, as part of the node, like Calico just makes a call back to the API server at some point during the setup process and says, yep, network's ready for this node. And then that will cause the kubelet to reevaluate its readiness checks, because there's
It's an okay, so and that's a newer thing. Like that's something that changed since 22 or some version of containerd or something where there's
oh,
this.
they're probably, yeah, I think that I don't know if it's container D or not, but I do believe that there was some weird logic if you were using Docker shim, because it was assumed, because like Docker came with its own networking or something that it.
No, it used to be that the kubelet. I swear it was something like there was an opt CNI bin directory, and the kubelet you would give that to the kubelet on startup, and the kubelet unless it saw that
was, at least that was used to check the CNI configs. But at least as far as I can remember with Calico always was the one that initiated like the reason why we have some really, we have this chicken and the egg problem with the kubelet with like the config for the CNI, like especially Calico, is because Calico needs to get the like Calico needs to know at least in CapZ, needs to know a public URL to hit the API server so that it can do the registration to say that the node is ready, and so that that needs to happen before kubeproxy's running and can set up the internal routes to the API server.
Yeah, that's a common CNI thing, right? That chicken or
Yeah.
egg thing of there's a whole chicken or egg thing around the kubeproxy internal service endpoint. So
And I believe it's like because
Calico makes an API call to the what API field is it changing? Who's telling the API server this is because I'm like on a node and I don't even see this field. Like if I go to like
I'm pretty sure it sends
like I'm on here, I don't see anything saying the
something that
network is not
says
ready.
no, it updates the status of the node to say network is ready.
So there's never a network not ready.
Well, when a node comes up online before you install you install CNI, it's like if you
see this? Like you see why this is weird? Because like there's no status for network on this node.
do kubectl describe node or kubectl describe on the node. One of the it sets a condition, I think it is. And then scroll up a little bit. You should be able to see the condition.
I don't see anything. What am I crazy? I don't see any networking. I'm like, I run the E2E test. They say there's something wrong with the network, but there's no information about the network in the kubelet. And I'm trying to figure out, is this a part of the data model for a kubelet or not? And I can't get it straight in my head because I don't see anything about networking in the node. It's just so weird.
But I can try and set up a cluster or like a CapZ cluster and do that. But they're
I could look
everything that I remember seeing, there's a condition that gets added that says network ready. And then
let's look at another cluster. I have another cluster here. We can look at one. So kubectx. Let's switch over to here. kubectl get nodes. kubectl edit node. And then we can check a CapZ one if we still don't see it. But this is a healthy cluster.
It's a healthy cluster?
Yeah, this is a healthy one. And I don't see it here either.
Is the node ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, ready. Ready's true.
It's like somebody somehow decides the node is ready, but it's not in the kubelet object. It's like in some other object. That information. It's just so strange. Or maybe in your CAPS E cluster, you'll find that there is this field, and maybe the absence of that field means that the network isn't up yet. I think that's kind of the hypothesis.
Oh, so maybe it is. So in this issue under kubeadm, it says that there's a condition. Like they do kubectl describe no. Oh, this is a super old version of Kubernetes, but this is what I remember seeing. You'll see like kubelet not ready, and it'll say something like, yeah, the runtime network is not ready, network ready is false, and then something up, it either gets updated or that gets removed, and then the queue goes right.
Okay, so the working hypothesis is that the absence of that, but it's the absence, right?
That's what it may be.
I think that's the working hypothesis we have here, is that the absence of this field means the network's not ready. That's fair. I just wanted to, I was starting to think that. That's really weird. I wish it would just say, I wish it would just say network ready false, and then it switches to true, so that we're not adding data and removing it and using that as the, right?
Yeah.
It's really weird that we're implying that condition as opposed to just reading it explicitly. It means that anybody who wants to figure out whether the network is ready has to guess at the semantics of this field that isn't there, right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I got it. Okay. Thanks.
Let me, yeah. Oh, now I'm kind of interested because I know I've seen this before.
Yeah, I mean,
Network ready is false. Yeah. Okay, I'll maybe try and look at this today, but that's what I remember. There should be some condition or something that, at least if CNI is not set up when you do kubectl describe, it was kind of obvious.
yeah. All right. Cool. All right, I'm going to rebuild this cluster with the right settings. I'm not sure Tejera operator really works well with multi-OS clusters, but I'm going to figure out more about that later today. All right, see you, Mark. I got to get going.
Yep, see.
Thanks.